All right, welcome to the sixth episode of the Futureworlds Metaverse podcast. Today we've got a very special guest. He is an artist, he's an entrepreneur, he's been featured in a number of different mediums. His name's Paul Roustan, and I'm glad to have him here with us today. Welcome,
Thank you
Paul.
for having me. My pleasure.
Hey, it's very, very, very nice to have you on board. I also want to mention he's going to be in person with us at Future Worlds 2022 on November 12th in Los Angeles. So if you want to continue the conversation beyond this or meet him in person, please come out. You can go to futureworlds.co for information and tickets. And let's jump in.
Yeah.
So, how about a little background? I mean, you're in Los Angeles, I think, like I am. But how did you get started in this whole thing? And tell us where you started.
Yeah, I'm a body painter. I paint on people and then I photograph them. And I've been doing this for almost 18 years now. And everything I've done during that 18-year period feels like it was prepping me for this new world that we've entered with Web3. And in March 2021, I saw a video that said crypto art as its thumbnail. And I was very intrigued, especially since I got into crypto a little bit around 2014. And so I watched the video and the idea of pairing my artwork with crypto made a lot of sense. I completely understood it immediately. And I dove in headfirst, never looked back, and started creating NFTs.
That's
And
amazing. So we're let's go back to your body painting because that's a very unusual skill and it's a talent that not a lot of people have exhibited. And I've looked at some of your work. It's super sexy, number one, super gorgeous, and just like you're celebrating different forms and shapes and textures. And it seems like you're doing things that I don't normally see in other medium at all. People think, oh, I'm going to paint it like it's a painting, but you're doing it almost in some instances like a skin, in some instances like it's blending in with the environment or the background, and in some instances it's just its own piece. But where did that start, and how did you get inspired to do that?
yeah, so I was an illustrator my whole life. I loved drawing people. I wasn't very interested in drawing landscapes or backgrounds. I started doing comic books, cartoons a lot when I was young, and I would do caricatures of my teachers and things like that. And then during college, I became a caricature artist at a theme park in Six Flags in Chicago. And I was in love with that. That was the best schooling I ever had. And one of the people I worked with there, Mario Ceja, he became a body painter and he showed me and he kind of opened my eyes that this could be done. I remembered in 1992, I was about 12 years old. I saw the cover of Vanity Fair. Demi Moore was painted in a business suit.
I remember that cover.
And I remember being completely blown away by it. The photo, it was photographed by Annie Leibovitz, and I'm standing there, 12-year-old Paul Roustan, looking at this naked Demi Moore in the supermarket line and just being completely blown away. But even then I didn't think it was something that I could do, ever in my life. And then I saw Mario Ceja's work. He had made this calendar and I was like, oh yeah. It was almost like I'd forgotten that this was like a potential thing. And I dove right in and I was working for an adult magazine doing editorial illustrations. And so I would draw pictures based on the articles that they wrote, whether they were fiction or nonfiction. And I just randomly pitched the idea of painting one of the models for their photo spreads as if I had done it before and I'd never tried it. But they said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And I did it and I was completely hooked.
Wait,
And
so
I,
you jumped in with a professional opportunity with a, let's just say, probably a professional model, and you got a commitment from an established magazine as a client to do this, and you've never done it before.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I knew I could. I at the time I'd painted t-shirts, I'd painted all sorts of things with an airbrush. So it was just changing the canvas. It was not hard for me. And caricatures actually taught me more than anything how to face my fears. You could be the best artist in the world, but the moment you sit down in front of a crowd to draw someone and you have to make it look like them, like the weight and pressure of that is brutal.
Those guys have always been impressive, and I always wondered if there was a trick or some kind of mechanism because you're right. You've got maybe 10 minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes, and
Yep.
you've got to capture someone's essence. Like you said, it has to look like them. Otherwise, no one,
Correct.
that line's going to
Yeah.
go away.
And
So
so just imagine your first time and knowing you have all these people leaning over you, and it's like it feels exaggerated, you know, they feel like giants just like peering over you, and every little line you draw is just so like I after two very intensive summers, it was like boot camp. It was 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I was, for the first time in my life, making money, making art, but I didn't even have time to spend it. So money was not a factor. It was all, I want to get better at this. I want to do really good at this. I want to become good at airbrushing. And so I learned so much there. So after that, it was like nothing scares me. I became a tattoo apprentice once. And I remember doing my first tattoo, and I was like, I'm supposed to be scared. You know, you don't want to mess up on someone's skin. You're supposed to be scared. And I was just kind of numb to the fear. So when it came to body painting, it was like, oh yeah, I could do this. This is easy compared to what I've done, you
but
know?
you're also taking it into a three-dimensional space, right? Instead of a flat canvas,
Right,
you could
right,
paper.
right.
Now you're worried about curves and shapes. And how did that just came naturally as
Well,
well?
you know, that takes a little bit, there's a learning curve there for sure, you know, and I'd say my first 5 years of body painting was sort of beginning to find techniques, figure out, understand techniques. But my experience with all the art I'd done before, I didn't worry about doing a bad job. I knew that my worst is probably better than most people's first attempts. So I was on the track running right off the bat, you know, and
So the magazine picks it up. They probably run a whole spread on it. You
yeah.
start doing more work in that space. You become the go-to guy for body painting. And then how does that evolve into, when I saw you've got a couple of books out, you did a hologram issue, you're getting into technology, you're taking it from a physical painting medium into something more electronic or digital.
Correct. Yeah. So my initial goal was basically I did my first few body paintings and completely fell in love with it. Sorry if you hear my dog barking.
No, no.
Yeah, completely fell in love with it. All right. I hang on, let me see. Boo, come here. Hey, come here.
Come
Sit
on,
down.
Boo, hop in.
I got him on Halloween 2 years ago, so that's why his name is Boo. So his birthday,
His birthday's coming
his
up.
birthday's coming up.
Right.
Down, sit here, down. Good boy. Um, yeah, I found out that I kind of don't enjoy drawing. Once I started painting on people, I I didn't like how I could spend 18 hours on a drawing and hate it at the end of it because I was so self-critical about it. And body painting for me was like you have to finish in 3-4 hours tops, you know. You can't just set the model aside and paint them later.
And then
And
how long, just quick aside, how long is it good? Does the paint start to melt off
it
or rub
depends
off?
on the skin type. It can last a day, it could last only an hour, depending on how oily the skin is, or you know, whatever the skin type is. But
Or if you got to get dressed and go somewhere, right? You can't walk.
right, right. It gets it. There's limitations for sure, and
Okay.
so I painted, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 people, and then I created this goal like I want to paint 100 people and make a book. I really want to do that. I'd always wanted to make a book of my work my whole life, whether it was cartooning, illustration, whatever, you know. And so now I wanted to make a book on body painting. And fast forward a few years, I stopped counting, and I probably broke 100, and I was probably at around 150 when I counted. And I was like, I should make my book. And then I looked back on the work and I was like, but none of this is good enough to me, you know? So I just kept going until you know, to me, it was all technical stuff and I was being hard on myself. And, you know, at one point I started shooting my own photos. I stopped collaborating with photographers and started doing that part myself because I had a gallery show and I didn't feel like the work was mine when it was photographed by someone else. And so to answer your question, fast forward more years, I started showing my work in galleries with photos and videos and live painted models, and that became one of my income streams. What, you know, usually I would do commissions for trade shows. I would do private commissions for private clients. I would do workshops, photography workshops, but also my favorite of the bunch was displaying my work in galleries for other people to see and buy if they liked it, you know. And so
So
when it came time for Web3, it was taking that and simplifying it into the digital world with NFT tokens.
Just to go back a second, I have a friend named Glenn Friedman who's a photographer out of New York. He shot a lot of the early Dogtown stuff out here, the skate stuff in
Oh,
Venice,
cool.
and put out a book. Actually put out like 4 or 5 books. But one time I was speaking with him about it, and he said the cost of a full, color gloss photo book is ridiculous. He goes, this book cost me like, $300 or whatever to print. And and he ended up, couldn't get a publisher, or got a publisher, but it was too expensive, ended up printing them himself. But how did you go about getting your book? Was it financed? Did you have a publisher? How did you go about that? Because I know it's very
Yeah.
expensive to do high quality book.
So I know some secrets about this that most people don't know. We could probably do a whole conversation on book printing and it bums me out to see people throw so much money away. But basically, I've always lived on a shoestring budget. I was definitely a starving artist at one point, and so I know how to take my money and use it, spend it wisely. And I took advantage of Kickstarter, and so I raised funds, but of course I had to make sure I understood the costs and the amount that I would need to make this happen. And basically, what people run into is they go to a local publishing company nearby, and they're getting the middleman price. And so I cut the middleman out completely. I went around to probably 10 different publishers in the United States and Canada. I wanted to print in-house in the US, but like you said, the prices were insane, absolutely insane. And so I said, all right, forget about them. I'm gonna go straight to their supplier, and
Smart.
I researched some companies in China, and I found one of the top of the line companies. I think I found them via AliExpress or Alibaba,
Sure.
and I started to research because it's kind of a scary thing to deal with money, you know,
Yes.
just like wire money to a company in China and like, will you get your product delivered? But I was like, well, I'm a risk taker. Let's do this. I'll take this risk over like not potentially being able to print a book. And so it turns out that this printer is one of the top printers and where most US printers print from, you know? And so they just US printers generally will hire them to do the job, and they will double or triple the price and keep all that profit, and the quality is also brought down a bit, And
Sure.
so I found all that stuff out. Had a lot of long, many emails back and forth, dialogue with this
Did you
Chinese
go
printing company.
there?
I didn't go there, no.
Wow.
And I had to learn so much. I had to learn how to globally ship books, because it's like there was that one thing was them printing the books, but they don't deliver it. I have to hire a global shipping company to pick it up from their company, put it
Sure.
on a cargo ship, deliver it to Los Angeles docks in Long Beach,
FOD.
and then I had to hire somebody to pick it up and deliver it to me. So it was like a major process, but I saved tens of thousands of dollars by cutting out that middleman who would have done all that stuff for me,
So you
So
published it yourself.
published it myself. It's top quality. It's not skimped in any way. Anyone who, you can see the Amazon reviews. Anyone who's held the book in their hands is blown away by the quality. It rivals the best coffee table books you've ever seen. Uh, and
How
and
many
I
did you run?
I made 1,000 copies of the first edition and 500 copies of the second edition.
Good for you, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would guess that you probably, not that it's anybody's business, but you probably made 50 or 60 times what you would have made if you'd done a deal with a
Well, so because of Kickstarter, it was
ah.
fully funded. So it didn't really cost me anything. So I could sell you a book for a penny and that's a profit. It's amazing. And that's just really taking advantage of what the internet has to offer. That's Web 2. That's the Web 2 world that I
That is Web 2. And
sort
did
of
you
figured out.
you already had a following from your body painting art, probably, right?
Yeah,
You had a
yeah.
following. So
I've always had a good following on Google Plus, Instagram, YouTube. Now I'm growing my Twitter with Web3, but I've always had good reach, so it works
nice.
for me.
So how does that jump into then you went to did you do holograms next or did you do NFTs
Oh,
next?
so the hologram was my very first Kickstarter. I've had think 4 successful Kickstarters. I can't even remember now. It's been a while. But I did the hologram, I think, in 2014. And this was a cool thing. I used to teach holography at the Art Institute of Chicago.
Wow.
And it's a pretty intense process, right? It's like creating a photograph, using a dark room and everything, same techniques, except instead of using white light, which you would use for a photograph, you use laser light, and that captures the distances between the eye and a 3D object, the way that light bounces back and forth. So the film captures that. You develop it in a darkroom, but because it's lasers, if you can imagine, like wavelengths, if an object moves, it the laser shifts, and then light cancels itself out, basically. So that means you won't get an image appearing. So what I was teaching was creating holograms on very stabilized objects that can't move. And in order to capture a human being the way that I did using this Kickstarter, you need to have a pulse hologram, which could burn a hole through a wall. The laser could burn a hole through a wall, so it's
Good luck getting
a
them all.
very, very, very powerful laser, which costs a lot of money and is very specialized by only a few people in the world like have this setup. And so I had to basically commission a pulse holographer to let me come to their studio, and I painted somebody up and put him in front of the hologram or the setup and created this pulse hologram. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
So does that laser expose them to film in a camera, or what's the
So
recording?
basically you spread the beam so it covers the full body, so it's less powerful, but still the exposure is a fraction of a second faster than the body can move. And then that hits the film, it hits the person. The lighting is, pre-designed by the artist, and that's what gets captured on the film. And then you just develop it in a darkroom, just like a photograph.
And then when you see it, is there something that gives it a three-dimensional effect, and you're looking at 2D, I'm assuming, right? If I'm looking at a print.
Imagine looking at a piece of glass with someone sitting behind it. And so you can move left and right and see sides of the face or whatever. And it's true 3D. There's no illusion there. It's not like stereoscopy. It's not like a lenticular, like
Yeah,
those
yeah,
little
yeah.
crackerjack things. It's real deal 3D. You can take that hologram and take a new piece of film and put it in the space that the 3D image floats and make a new hologram of that from that new perspective, So it's like real, like it's sad to me that technology, it's so advanced, but it's so obsolete now, and it was so expensive, so it never really could go the full weight of success that it deserves, and it may have some sort of comeback. Things are getting much, much cheaper to produce these things, but now the people are kind of dying off with interest in it.
Or even like 3D movies. I remember that was a big
Oh
thing.
yeah. I
And
mean, there was I believe like the Russians back in like I want to say like the 70s or 80s actually did it. They actually created a 3D movie, but it was so expensive, and it was probably like 7 or 8 seconds or something, to the best of my memory. But it was just not easily achieved, so it never took off. But
right. But I
yeah, it's
think
amazing.
that's like you said, it's going to come back. And one of the things I've learned over the past, few, I don't know, let's call it a year, um, has been that learning tends to set better in three dimensions, right? So if it's something where you're looking at and around, and for some reason your brain just processes because our eyes are offset and you're getting a 3D image in your
Right, the
brain.
stereoscopy. Yeah.
Yeah, stereoscopy. There you go. Just imprints better than 2D for some reason. So they're saying it's even 60% better if you have a short exposure to a picture or an image or a piece of text or an object, you'll retain that in more detail
Wow,
quicker from a 3D exposure than you
that's
would from a
interesting.
2D exposure, which
I never heard
makes
that
sense.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of training, especially in workplaces. And I was at a
Mm,
conference a couple days ago, medical, right, where you're looking at organs in a body. There's someone told a story about they were separating twins that were conjoined at the head, and they rehearsed this operation for something like 2 weeks
wow.
prior over a metaverse 3D type of environment. So the doctors never really, they're basically practicing for a couple of
Right.
weeks
Right.
before they
That's
get into a real
amazing.
situation, which is a really cool application of that. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess, okay, going from holography into NFTs and digital tokens, what happened there?
Yeah, so like for me, the hologram was like, okay, body painting is this ephemeral art, right? It only exists for a short, very short period of time, and most people never get to see it in person unless it's like a performance. So it's an intimate experience with the people that are there live. And so the hologram really was one of the first actual three-dimensional documentations of a body painting permanently, you know? And so NFTs became kind of the perfect medium for artwork that is not is not real. So there's like video, video artists all of a sudden have a way to sell one of ones and create things and put them out there. Like in the 90s and 80s, video art was cool. You could go to a gallery, see amazing video art, but you couldn't necessarily buy it and take it home. Now for the first time ever, you have, video artists and animators and body painters able to do something like this, which was the most amazing thing to me ever. And of course, as is pretty clear now, just from our current dialogue, you can tell that I'm pretty fascinated with technology and how can I combine it to what I do and think ahead of the game. So NFTs
100%.
just made sense.
You're touching on something really interesting because, like you said, it's almost like an ice cream cone. That actual body painting is only good for a few hours or maybe a day at best. How do you make that persistent, right? How do you keep that in a state where someone can enjoy it? And you're right, a digital representation of that makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so like before NFTs, I would sell prints and limited edition prints and one of one prints, and it was just a photo, which is great. Photos are cool. But now I could sell a video in motion that can be displayed on a screen as an artwork. And now there's, like I have a Samsung and a Samsung frame TV. It looks like a picture frame, just like the ones you have on your wall. But now you have this sort of moving, image, kind of like the Harry Potter frames. And so that was super exciting for me to be able to offer this now.
So let's talk about that. Is it first of all, how do the rights work on that? I'm assuming you've got a model. You
Mhm.
probably the work obviously is your work. I don't know if there's a third party production team. Probably not. It sounds like that's you.
No, it's just me and the
So
model. Yeah. And so the models will sign a release, which gives me permission to use their image and likeness and name, and it's just a deal worked out between us and them. And I always give them a cut or a pre payment in some way. I'm pretty honorable and fair with everybody, probably more than I should be because I didn't account for taxes and things like that.
it's a
But
way, but look at where you've gotten, right? I mean, and I'm sure that everybody would talk and say, look, go work with Roustan. He's a straight up guy. If you're going to go somewhere, it's legit. So, is there a smart contract baked into that, or is there something
I
where
think there will be in the future. Unfortunately, most of the models that I work with don't mess with NFTs. They don't mess with crypto. They don't have wallets. So I give them the option. I say, I'll give you a cut of a sale. Um, do you want cash or do you want crypto? If you want crypto, which I recommend, you need to make a wallet. You need to do this. You need to do that. And then their eyes cross, and it's just like, like I have yet to really work with a model that has a crypto wallet. So it's too early for that,
is that right?
but that will be amazing when like I can put in the contract with someone who understands, they get their percentage, I get my percentage. We don't have to even do anything. It's pretty awesome.
It blows my mind because I my background's in music and I worked with music artists for 25 years, but they're at some point, if they're successful, they learn quickly that they'd rather have the percentage than the advance, right? It's like, okay, I can
Oh,
pay you
totally.
a fee, or I'll give you, $1.50 of every album that you sell, or 0.0002 every stream. That's far more valuable if there's success. And
Totally. And of course, there's the risk of the opposite happening. And I just had a big nifty gateway drop that was really successful. And I paid a lot of people. I had 5 pieces, 5 different models. I had music production artist provide the sound. So I gave them a cut. I gave everybody prepayment and also a post cut.
nice.
And they all wanted cash, except for the music artist who's who I
You
found via
knew.
NFTs. But I believe I might have paid him cash too. Um, but I immediately took my profits. Nifty Gateway pays in cash. So I took my profits and bought crypto with it, invested it, and then the bear market continued to tank. But I'm holding it with knowing that it's probably going to come back up. But if it never does, the model's made the right decision by taking the cash. But I believe it'll come back up. And so I'm just holding it for now.
Well, and they're also with, you're a pioneer, you're a trailblazer in this space. And to say I was part of this piece of work or this body of work, technically a body of work, from Roustan in this period, I would think that's short-sighted. If it were me negotiating, I would take half cash and half crypto.
it's
Just so
it's like yeah, it's like it's complicated, right? Because people read headlines and they think there's hundreds of thousands of millions of whatever dollars being thrown around, and I'm like, most of my profits I haven't touched yet. It's all just sitting in crypto. Some are locked up in NFTs and things like that, and it's in the belief that we're going to see a incredible bull market. And but like what it takes to have a successful Nifty Gateway drop is like a lot. It
oh yeah.
takes a lot. It's not like you can just start a Twitter account and have a successful Beeple $69 million sale the next day.
You're in Discord for a long, long time. You're
Right. There's a
around for a long,
lot,
long
like it
time.
becomes your full-time job, and so a lot of people don't think about that. And so after my drop, I was pretty beat for like a month, recovering after that. I needed a break.
I
And
hear you. Now, and I always reference the Beeple because I think there's a huge underground, call it crypto economy, that most folks in the mainstream are not aware of. And I keep saying that's not some, retired guy cashing in his Morgan Stanley 401k to pull out $69 million. That's some kid in Estonia who's got 400 million in Ethereum and Bitcoin. He goes, 69 million, I'll
yeah,
buy
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And it's a way to buy a hard asset from an asset that doesn't have an actual reality base, and people are trading in and out of those. And like you said, now that the auction process and the NFT process has made that a lot easier. But I think that's where you're seeing most of this come from. The auction process always scares me because who knows who's putting up what and where the values really are, because
right.
I could tell
There's
you,
so many weird factors. Yeah.
I could
And
say,
and
Paul, let me
ultimate
bid this up, right? And make a deal with you and say, if you're the last bidder, I'll just give you the money back. Meanwhile, there's
mm,
somebody else that's in that auction that they're the last bidder. You've now bid up my asset to 10,
right.
20, 30, 40, 100 times over.
Yeah, there's definitely some gamification. I found my method. I don't see that working long term. So I remember early on, like the first 4 or 5 months, I didn't sell one of my expensive one of one NFTs. And and I watched a lot of my colleagues selling their stuff at high prices. It's like, when's it gonna be my turn? When's it gonna be my turn? And but then there was a point where I was like, wait, but I don't know if I want that collector to buy my piece at that price, because do they even, like, in one case there was one major collector who bought up like 300 pieces in like 4 hours. And I was like, did he even look at the art? Does he even like the art? Does he know what he bought? And I was like, I don't want someone to buy my stuff and not even know what it is or like it or anything. I want someone who loves it to buy it. And so that's when I started collecting collectors, building relationships with human beings, and was selling accessibly, and developed relationships to where I want them to sell it and flip it for a profit. I want the secondary market to be valuable. To me, that in the long term is way more valuable than the random whale showing up, not even
I
caring.
agree. It's where art meets commerce, and as a
Right.
manager in the music space, that was my daily balance, right? How much of this is the money? How much of this is from the art and the creative side? And it's not always a pretty game. I mean, there's a lot
Right.
of ugliness behind that. And I remember, one of my artists once called me and said, "Steve, we're selling too many records."
Mm,
I said, "Okay." I said, "You signed a record contract, and the whole purpose behind the record company is to sell records and make a profit." I said, again, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with playing guitar in your living room for your friends. But you made a decision to engage in that commercial endeavor,
right.
right? And and they are a machine. It's like if you're, I don't know, just a bunch of robots marching in a certain place. Their sole purpose is to promote your work and make a profit from it.
Right.
And hopefully you'll get a benefit from that, right? You'll be able to make more records, you'll be able to tour, you'll be able to have a different life, whatever. So there's a trade-off, and I went through this whole thing. I said you can play at the corner bar, the guy pays you in beer. You can play on
Right.
your couch, your friends come over, they enjoy it. It's completely organic. The minute you say I'm going to take $1 or any financial remuneration for your art, you're engaging in a commercial business. Now, what degree are you into that? It's up to you.
Right. There's a balance.
There is a balance. And at the end of that, he just paused and he was like, "You're right." Because I said, "What number do you want them to stop at?" Right. And he just laughed. And I said, "That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're hot right now. And in 10 or 20 years, you're going to look back at this and wish it went on for, another 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever. Every athlete, everybody that's had that little taste, wish that time could have been extended. And it really can't. I mean, things operate in cycles like
Right.
and rhythms. And it's just, if you're in it, enjoy it, take that
Yeah.
ride, and then
Yeah.
use that to be creative. Because, the first record that you put out, the label and the producer and the A&R guy or girl have a lot of influence on what that's like. The minute you have some success, now you've got much more control. And like you said about yourself, doing the work yourself, making that book, publishing it yourself, you have complete control.
Right.
Right? A publisher might have said, "Hey, Paul, we want your cover to be,
Right.
purple, and we want this logo and this amount of pages or this amount of quality." And you're like, "No, I love this high quality. I'm willing to invest a little more. I think my fans or my consumers or whatever you're going to call the people that look at my art are going to want to see it presented in a certain way, and this is what I want to do." So
Right.
you give up, like you said, it's a balance. But
And of course, my decisions are not necessarily the best decisions. And I probably could have made more money with the publisher, but do I relinquish my control for money? Do I care about money that much? Like I get it. There's an individual balance for every person, and there's no wrong answer. It's
there isn't, and it's about what feels right to you, because
right.
you got to sleep at night, and everything's not about money. And if it's anything I've learned, money's a long-term play. And if you think about, oh, I'm going to do this and clear this off and get rich quick, that's just not a I don't think it's the right way to live, and it's probably not a good long-term sustainable plan. But if you build relationships, like you said, you're going directly to the collectors that care about your work. You're developing a community. You've got a
Right.
following that's looking at you legitimately. They're not bots. You're not just buying
Right.
advertising here and
Right.
there. Over time, you're going to build something that you have of something of high value. And when you come into a new medium like NFTs or like the metaverse stuff, they're there for you, right? You've
Right.
got following, you've got something to fall back on, you've got sounding boards, people that will participate directly, even if it's something that's strange to them. They trust in your work and the quality that you've brought and the creativity, and they're like, "I like Paul. I'm going to follow him into this. Let's see what he's doing."
And
So
they
what
also
do you,
become your super fans, and they advertise for you, they promote you, and
oh,
it's
man,
just a beautiful, beautiful, symbiotic relationship.
it's probably one of the best ways to live your life, right? You
I
could
think so too. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's all about having fun and being happy, being content with what I'm doing, not stressing about things. And so this has afforded me the ability to do just that. And it's funny because, like, just like you said, as soon as you take $1, it becomes a financial thing, right? And I remember, like I said, my first 5 years of body painting were all technical. Then I competed. Then I got sponsored. Now money's being thrown at me. People are hiring me, and that's a whole other psychological, obstacle that you have to come get through, right? And so you go through all these things, and I learned so much in that first 17 years that prepared me for this, which is amazing. Like all those stresses that I dealt with then, there's new artists now that have to figure that out, and I've already got it under my belt.
and if you knew what you knew now back then, right, you'd probably relax a little more and
Oh
say,
yeah.
"I'm along for the ride. This is going to be
Luckily,
fun."
I think I tend to just always accidentally do the right thing. I mean, I've had failure after failure after failure after failure, which is part of learning. Like those are the best things ever, right?
Sure.
So it taught me to be who I am. But for the most part, I've always my entire life, I've always been I want to do what I want to do the way I want to do it. I don't care what the teacher's telling me, what the school requirements are. Like, I don't feel like taking math one. I'm going to switch that for science, and get approval by the dean. And, it's like, for some reason, I was hard-headed enough to only do what I want. And I had a real graphic design job. It was probably my only real job ever for 3 months. And I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable because I wasn't doing what I wanted, and it taught me that's not where I'm supposed to be, and so I follow my heart
You got
all
to
the
follow
time.
your heart, and you took a risk, right?
Yeah.
Most
Oh, it's
people,
a huge risk.
yeah, they probably look at you and go, "I wish I could live that life, being creative and making a decent living and sustainable living off of my own creativity." Which, again, I think you're living the dream compared to guys that have
And
to
of
work.
course, the sacrifices, I could definitely have a six-figure job that's consistent and reliable somewhere. But I don't want that, I won't, I'll take my risk for my fun, happiness, and less money. It's totally fine.
Sure. Well, we don't know if it's less money because I think at the end
Well,
of the day,
yeah.
the success that comes, no, the success that comes because of that risk and the amount of work that you put in for all those years
Right. Well,
ends up,
yeah,
and
especially now with the Web3 and the potential there, it's scary to think what it could be. And
I
I'm
see
like, I have zero expectations, but
that,
I
that
think,
I love how you get into that because I see it on the music side, and there's these artists that are charging 150, 350, $500 a ticket to play in concert now. And it is the band. People keep going, "Oh, it's the promote." I'm like, "No, the artist signs off on that. They don't have to do
mhm,
that." And I know the market is there, and I'm not complaining or saying that there isn't supply or demand issues. But when you can do a show that's much more open to the world, and you're democratizing that show across, I don't know, say 1 billion people, you can now sell a ticket for $1
yeah,
and
it's a
make
billion dollars.
10
Yeah,
times more money, a hundred
right.
times more money doing that than doing the $150 tickets to 10,000 people a night and then
Which
having.
is a perfect point in this current world, right? So like I said, my first 5 months, I had a hard time selling a one of one high priced NFT. And then I found the Tezos blockchain.
Yep.
Hic et Nunc, Hen for short, was the Tezos art NFT art blockchain. Um, and it was more accessible. Most NFTs probably cost $1 to $10, and but it was about edition sizes. So instead of selling a one of one for $1,000, I sold maybe an edition of 100 for $10, which is the same amount of money. But now you have 100 buyers,
Yes.
you have 100 collectors, and like I said, I'm collecting collectors. I don't want it to be in one wallet. I want it to be in 100 wallet, and I want to build relationships with those 100 people and keep it going.
That's
It's
exactly right. It's scaling, right? And
right.
I bet some of your audience are from places you would never expect,
Oh yeah, totally,
right? Countries you've
totally.
never even heard of, maybe.
Yeah,
It's one of the best things about the technology, metaverse in particular, is accessibility, right? If you've got a mobile device, it may not be full VR 360, but you can connect, and you can now participate in places and in events that you could never see before, right?
absolutely. It was crazy. I mean, I spent how many years building my brand on social media or whatever, and it was taking forever. And I was working for likes, right? And then within 4 or 5 months on Twitter with NFTs, I surpassed the income, and I surpassed the awareness of my brand that I had spent over a decade trying to build previously. And it was just like, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing.
So you use Twitter to push people into, or let people know about the auctions, or how did you actually
Well,
utilize?
Twitter is the best platform for NFT communities right now. That and Discord, right?
Mhm.
And then like with the Hic et Nunc blockchain, that was heavily there was a heavy dialogue about it on Twitter. Like you talk about Tezos NFTs on Instagram, and it's like, okay, have fun getting
Crickets.
any sort of response with that. But everybody was on Twitter, so go where everybody is, right? And so that's where I spent a lot of time in it. Before NFTs, I had no reason to use Twitter. Like, I wasn't a celebrity or a politician that had like a fan base to show up. But now there's a purpose, and it's been pretty phenomenal. As far as social networks go, like Twitter is pretty amazing.
What do you
It
think
does.
about Musk buying into that? Just as because
Well,
today's like
he
a bit of
didn't he
news.
get like pulled out, I think, right?
Oh no, 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 no! This
Or
morning
he
he's confirmed that
Oh,
he
really?
now owns it, and he
Oh, wow. I
fired the
didn't hear that yet.
CEO, fired the CFO,
Whoa.
fired everybody.
Well, so for me, like I've always been an advocate for, like, be careful with social media because you're not in control of it. Like, you control your website to a certain degree, other than, like, the server. They could shut you down. But I've been banned from Facebook, I've been banned from Instagram, I've been censored and then accepted by Google on Google Plus. I've been flagged but accepted by you. I've been through the whole spectrum, and I always know at any moment any one of these platforms, including Twitter, could be like, you're out of here, completely out of here. And so I try not to have my whole business in that basket, you know.
Right.
And the metaverse, though, is cool, but I still came into Decentraland with the same sort of mentality. I bought land. This is my land. You can't tell me what to do on it. They have certain guidelines that you should adhere to, but for the most part, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put up my naked body paint artwork. How long are they going to let me be here before they kick me out? That was my mentality. And to my surprise, the community accepted and supported me very, very well. And I'm still kicking it there every single day. And it's been amazing. But even then, that could crash. Like, you have to always be ready to move. So, like, Elon Musk, I respect a lot of stuff about Elon Musk, but I don't know the whole story of anybody, especially presented by the media. I don't really
Sure.
believe much of what I read or see, especially headlines. And I can only go day to day until somebody comes knocking on my door telling me what I can or can't do.
I think you're right. I just to me, I think he's going to transform it into. He's always liked X, and remember when he started PayPal? I think it was called PayX at first,
Mm,
and I think he mentioned somewhere along the line that there's WeChat that's Chinese, and the Chinese have that app does everything, right? It's your Uber, it's your DoorDash,
right.
it's your Facebook, it's your PayPal. It pays. Your whole life can be on that app. There's nothing quite like that here. And from what I'm reading, I think he's going to transform. I mean, he just needed to have an app, right?
Yeah.
And if you have an app with that type of adoption, right? Probably
Yeah.
most adopted apps in the world. And now you layer in a payment system so you can send payments back and forth to people, and a delivery system, and the communication system's already there, but I think he's going to transform it that way.
I
It's
mean, that's a
interesting.
big deal. That's a very big deal. That's a huge deal.
It is. And I think he underpaid. All the conversations like, oh, 44 billion. I said, you're going to look back in 5 years and think he got that at a bargain, just like Google bought YouTube for, I think it was
Yeah.
five, and people thought,
Yeah.
oh, that's
I mean,
crazy.
if Facebook, I think they invested 33 billion on the metaverse, that I don't think that was a lot of money for them.
It's not. And that's the other thing. You're right. It's all relative.
Yeah.
You got the richest guy in the world buying a tech platform, and he
Yeah.
knows the tech space because all of his PayPal partners came out of that space. I mean, he knows, Jack
I
Dorsey's a
mean, what's cool, what we're seeing this past week, month, is how Reddit onboarded the most NFT users, and has demonstrated an effective way to bring on normies into Web3 without them potentially even knowing about it. Like that. Reddit has always been amazing. Reddit has always been amazing. And so, like, it's amazing to see this happen now. And I got my Reddit NFTs as fast as I could. And it's cool to see people completely 180 from I hate NFTs, I hate Web3. And now they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm into this.
It's going to be part of your life whether you like it or not, and it's
Yeah.
it's just the same pushback that the internet originally had and email originally had. People, I'm never going to use email. I could just put something in an envelope and mail it. I'm like, good on you. That'll take a week to get back to you, whereas I could email somebody in 2 seconds and have a response immediately, and it's changed the world. So let's go back to Decentraland. I
Yeah.
think I saw your story. Is that on your plot? Is that on your land?
What did you see?
I thought I saw, maybe it was part of the Crystal Cities thing, or it was something with maybe the Dress X women or the Diver or Diana from Diverge. Somebody had a store. It was a Roustan store, I thought.
Hmm.
But wasn't
I
that,
don't
was that
remember.
you?
It could be my land. I'm not sure. I have stuff all over Decentraland now, but my land, it's basically, it's called Casa Rustan, and it's just a house basically without walls, and it houses usually my gallery, and then there's a hot tub on the top floor, and there's little dance
Of course there
areas,
is.
and people hang out and watch DJs, and it's a good time. And then next door to that, I have a spa, a tranquility spa that people can come relax and chill out and meditate with good sounds and good visuals. And right now, currently, it's all haunted for Halloween, so it's completely transformed and scary. And but uh, but that's my main home there. And then I've utilized other people's estates to create more massive experiences. I created a cove with a surreal steampunk shark in the sky with a surfable wave and beautiful palm trees and sand and bonfires and stuff. And that was geared towards a more acoustic kind of musician feel, to just to provide these feelings, basically, these
Interesting.
emotions.
Because I
um
think that's one of the other things, the other features, is you could create the most comfortable environment for yourself, right? Like you could say, I
yeah,
like this kind of music, this kind of texture, these colors, this kind of lighting, whatever it
right,
is. And the minute you walk in, it could be that, which is,
yeah, it's
uh,
amazing. I mean, I've mentioned this a few times, and I really hope people can hear me. I think everyone comes into Web3 with this knowledge from Web 2, and you have to shed a lot of that. Like, it almost doesn't always apply for the most part. And I came into Decentraland and realized I could do anything I imagine at a very reasonable price. Now that I own this land that was very expensive, I could do anything I imagine. Like the sky really is the limit, And I remember creating my first wearable, and I was going along with the herd, and I started creating a t-shirt, and I finished the t-shirt. It was all part of my learning process. And I finished the t-shirt, and I looked at it and I was like, why the hell did I make a t-shirt when you can make anything you can possibly make? And it was because of that knowledge from Web 2, right? Or like musicians, right? It's cheap to make a t-shirt. It's easy to
yep.
produce that. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You can make a cool shirt that people want to wear, and then bring it up. But I didn't have to keep that information in my head. Like I immediately, like within 10 minutes after thinking that, I was like, I should make a body painting that people can put on their avatars.
And
Of
you did that.
course. Right. And I did that. And so like I'm constantly always thinking outside the box, trying to think all right, here's my idea. How can I make it better? What other options do I have? Like and like it's just such an endless potential. It's so much fun. It's exciting.
Who did you work with on the body painting wearable?
Well, so I like I said, I've always operated on a shoestring budget. I've never been one who could afford to pay people to help me with things. So like when Web 2 came around, I learned how to code HTML. I learned how to do this. I learned how to do that. I've always done it myself. So when it came to wearables, I learned how to do it myself. I didn't depend on anybody. I did hit a couple road bumps with the body painting, or the body paint wearable, where like weight painting is a part of Blender, and that tells the body how to move basically.
Yep.
And no matter how many tutorials I watched, I couldn't wrap it around my head. So I had to hire someone to help me with this one little weight painting issue that I couldn't resolve. And it took forever. And after the fact, another really, really talented Blender artist, Kirzos, and then also another artist, Grimy, who are both amazing. I got some tips from them after, becoming a part of their community and building relationships with them. And they explained weight painting to me in a digestible way, and so now I understand it, and now I can do it. And so I do pretty much everything by myself. And any speed bumps I run into, I get a little bit of help. And so that's how I know Lastrum. I ran into speed bumps with coding because I also built my land in Decentraland. I figured out how to build in 3D, and I figured out how to code a little bit, all of which I knew nothing about a year ago today. Today is actually the 1 year anniversary of my first gallery show in Decentraland.
Oh,
And
happy birthday.
it's also the
Happy
1 year
anniversary.
anniversary of Facebook's announcement of Meta, you know,
That's right.
which, which was a crazy experience to have a show and then see that announcement like an hour later, and then see the masses of people coming in speculating on metaverse, so it's been a one wild ride.
It's crazy. And I thought you were working with the DressX folks on their I thought I saw something in their wearable
No,
closet or something, but
no, I helped spread the word with Diverge on some of their wearables. They
I
asked
don't know.
if I would help with their wearables a little bit, but that's pretty much all I've done with both of those brands.
Interesting. How many different wearables have you done so far?
Oh man, I'm not sure. I think like 12 or 15 or something in that area. And I've done emotes now too. So it's wearables and emotes. Today I checked before we came on this call. I've sold 777 wearables,
It's a good number. Wow.
which is pretty great. And I don't go at it like, okay, I know how to make money with wearables, so I'm just gonna pump them out. I roll on inspiration. So if I have this sudden idea, then I'll sit down and make it and put it out. But I don't try to like create a wearable every other day or every week. I might do one a month, maybe one every 2 or 3 months, maybe.
And are you programming the emotes? Because I understand that's it's a motion, right? Like it's an animation.
Yeah,
And unless you have it, you're just wearing something that kind of moves
right. Right. So
one
yeah, I
way.
learned how to do that too. I mean, they have some pretty good documentation in the Decentraland documents that tell you exactly what you need to do. And there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I've already been through the worst of it. So when it came to emotes, it was like, okay, I could do this. So I sat down one day and I created my first emote and it sold out in 30 minutes. It's pretty amazing.
That's crazy. I wonder if one day you'll paint somebody's, you know, somebody in the metaverse instead of someone in the
It's
entire
happening. It's happening. I
like an
mean,
avatar. You're painting avatars.
it's amazing the crazy things that are happening. I mean, I'm bringing in 3D scanned models that I've painted into the metaverse for people to see in 3D. I have one in motion. It's a crazy story, and I'm working on bringing it to life. I basically was asked to 3D scan a model in 2018, which was new. That was a new sort of
Yeah,
thing, and it was actually like patented and secret, so I couldn't talk about it back then. And I was like the first person to have a body painting scanned, And that's not even like the craziest part of the story. The craziest part of the story is after we did that, a year later, a year or two later, she passed away, the model that I had
oh,
painted. So now you have this recording documentation of a person in 3D who was painted that is no longer with us. And now I could bring her into the metaverse for anyone around the world to come meet after the fact. And it's motion, it's not like a static.
I was gonna say, is there mocap? You can actually she can move any
It
way.
wasn't mocap, it was an actual recording, a 3D recording of her moving in motion.
Okay.
So there's no like re-rigging of her 3D body or anything. It's like this is what she did in that moment, captured and preserved in 3 dimensions, and now you can meet her after the fact. It's just crazy the things that are happening. And I think 2 weeks ago I did another 3D scan body painting, and I don't have the files yet, but that'll be put into Decentraland as soon as I can put it in there.
I
But
just heard
it's
Bruce Willis did that as well. I think there's something he's got some deterioration physically,
mm,
but
right,
he decided to go and get a full mocap
yeah,
scan so that anybody can use him in a film
yeah.
10 years, 20,
It's
30
pretty
years.
crazy. It's pretty amazing
It's
because you
very,
can
very,
you can now, like, all you need is the scan, and then you can mocap anybody, and someone can move and be you, and they just put their
yes,
skin over you. It's amazing.
yes.
It's a wild, wild world right now.
Well, great talking to you, Paul. I really appreciate you hopping on at the last minute. Paul's going to be live at Future Worlds 2022 on November 12th. Come out, it's in Culver City, futureworlds.co for information and tickets. I'm looking forward to sitting with you again and meeting you in person.
Yeah, it's
Um,
gonna be fun.
it
Excited.
should be, I was at a conference the other day and it was way more business and corporate, and this thing hopefully is more creative. And we've got a
Yeah,
lot of people coming in and creatives that are building things like yourself. And in the fashion space, in the real estate space, and the just like the DJ performance space, which is
Awesome.
crazy.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking
It's cool
forward
to
to.
hear that your background is in music because that's huge. That's huge.
It is huge, but like you related earlier on, there's a lot of 2D mindset or Web 2 mindset,
Yes.
and unbelievably a number of musicians are not technically open, right? Oh, I
Right.
just do it this way, and it's like,
Right.
but what about this? And they're like,
Right.
I don't know
It's
anything
been
about that.
so hard. So like I try to tell so many people what you're doing, you're wasting a lot of time and energy and giving other people your money when you could be doing this and just killing it right now because it's not super saturated right now. So, but
Yes,
whatever. People figure
yes.
it out on their timelines, you know?
Everybody's doing what they can do, right? And you
Yeah.
try to help people out, and that's all you can do. Well, good
Yeah.
to meet you. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to
Pleasure.
seeing you in person, and I appreciate you
Definitely.
spending the time today, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.